And you guys thought I was joking about the superhero series. I mean, I kind of was, but then this baby turned up, the Audi E-tron GT. And if you're a keen Audi fan or a keen Avengers fan, you'll know that this car first appeared as a prototype driven by Tony Stark in the Avengers film. And Iron Man has got to be my favourite superhero. But the best thing about this car is it's kept that DNA, that superhero DNA. When we first saw it roll across the screens in the cinemas, we were like, wow, that is the Audi of the future. And look at it, it still suits that so much. It's kept that original DNA, and it is a car which is fit for a superhero. Hi guys, I'm Tish and welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to be looking at the Audi E-tron GT, telling you everything you need to know, giving you my opinions, and then taking my dad out for a spin.
Can you make lots of money and buy me one?
So if that sounds good, please keep watching, and if you do like car reviews like this and car content, then make sure you subscribe to the channel to see more videos. So let's start by talking about the styling, and for one, pulled it out of the bag with this location, right? I can't take complete credit for it. This is actually right near my cousin's house, and she walked past me here and I was like, I need to bring the Audi here, that will look perfect. But it suits it because it has that almost futuristic, apocalyptic feel about it. And I actually didn't like it originally finished in silver. The silver is around £900, £50 upgrade. But for that money, you can get it finished in that slightly greeny yellow colour, or you can get it finished in the baby blue that I've driven previously. And I think those colours are a bit more interesting. I wasn't taken by the silver, but now seeing it in this location with the contrasting black around the grille and this dark grey, it looks really, really good. Seriously smart. Keeping in the futuristic feel, it also gets some very funky light signatures on the front and the back. When you unlock the vehicle at the front, you'll see these LEDs light up, which look great. Okay, and I'm gushing over the Audi E-tron GT, but there's got to be a few things that I don't like. Well, not necessarily don't like, but maybe just would expect better out of a car which is over £100,000. And for a starter, it's the charging flaps. Now, unlike the Taycan, where you can just gently caress it and it will come open, the Audi e-tron just gets the classic tap and pull, and then they feel a little bit cheap, and they're not always the easiest to shut back. And also the door handles, it just has pretty boring door handles really, and I know that sounds silly, but we've gotten used to the flush door handles you can get on cars like the Jaguar I-Pace. The ones on the Audi, they are keyless, so you can swipe your hand across and it will lock and unlock the vehicle, but I don't know, I just think they'd look nicer if they had some flush ones. So the exterior of the Audi E-tron GT is modern, futuristic, pretty striking, but what about inside? Well, inside it's a slightly different vibe. It feels classy, classic, familiar. This car has something that I don't think the Polestar, or most certainly the Tesla, have, and that's driver engagement. This whole setup feels like the setup of a performance car. It feels worthy of that 0 to 62 time, that performance that you get out of it. It's really lovely. I like the way it's all built up around you. This centre column, I know nowadays we say that the best thing about electric cars is that we have more space, but I don't necessarily feel that I want that space in the e-tron. I want the focus to be on the driver engagement, and that's exactly what they've done. You've got a really good, clear digital instrument cluster, which you can put your full-size map on there. I really like that. This fantastic steering wheel. It does feel like a steering wheel which belongs in an R8 or an RS4, something really high performance. You've got the nice scrolly buttons, and rather than haptic buttons that you get on some cars, these are physical buttons as well to control some options like your heated steering wheel, other options like your volume controls, wheels, and then you've got the really heavy weighted paddles at the back, and these are for your regenerative braking. Another thing I love is these seats. I love a bit of red leather, and these wingback seats just feel every bit worth the money. They're electrically adjusted. If you press in the middle here, you've also got massage functions which you can change to pretty much have any type of massage you want. You can change the intensity as well. These are great if you're on a long drive and you're stuck in traffic. You can pop it on, have a quick massage. Absolutely love it. The only negative I had about these seats when I first drove the E-tron GT is I didn't think they were quite bolstered enough, but actually you can even change that. On the infotainment system, you can change the bolstering and you can have them hug you in even tighter, which is amazing. The parking sensors are really sensitive to a point where they just don't catch just when you're coming closer to a curb and you might hit the actual car, but they actually protect your alloy wheels. They have the sensors around the alloy wheels, so if you're going to nip a wheel, the parking sensors will go off, and that is a huge bonus on a car which has wheels which are this big. The touchscreen's really easy to use. There isn't actually any shortcut buttons below the infotainment screen, which is a little bit of a shame, but to be honest, it's all really simple and easy to use. And then below it, you do have physical climate control dials, which is brilliant. And you kind of tap them down or tap them up depending on the different functions you want. And this is also where you can find your heated and cooled seats. Boot storage is either very good or average at best, depending on what class you're putting the e-tron in. If you put it in the supercar market, then 405 litres of boot space is loads. However, if you are putting it in the executive saloon class, then it's pretty behind some of its rivals. This storage case does take up a lot of the boot space. You've got a tiny bit of underfloor storage, but only enough to put a small umbrella. There's about enough room to put a couple of large suitcases. However, the opening isn't always the easiest to get things in and out. So boot storage isn't amazing, but it is better than a lot of performance cars. But what is good about the e-tron is it gets some extra storage under the bonnet. Finding it is not so great. It's actually on the driver's side door on the inside, and that will release your bonnet. Now, whilst that isn't very easy to find, I do prefer the fact that it is electrically released. And then once inside here, there is actually a really good amount of storage space. I'm proud to say that this section of the video is sponsored by Greenpoint Nationwide, and specifically their Zappi charger, which is what I'm going to be talking about today. The Zappi uses battery storage and sustainable energy generation. Simply put, this is a technique in which you can use solar panels to charge your car. By installing a solar compatible EV charger like the Zappi, you can literally power your car with the sunshine. Greenpoint Nationwide will help you pick and install the correct charger for you. If you wanted to be on your way to greener charging, then make sure you check out the Zappi from Greenpoint. I'll pop all their details in the description box if you wanted to check them out, check the Zappi out, or any other services they offer. Thank you so much to Greenpoint Nationwide for sponsoring this video. And now let's get my dad's reaction to the e-tron.
Yep. It's launch control.
Yeah.
L'Oreal. Love it. I want one.
I know, it's very cool.
Can you make lots of money and buy me one?
That's the plan. The Audi gains its power from two motors, one on the front axle and one on the rear axle, and combined these give you 469 brake horsepower. But if sub 500 brake horsepower just doesn't do it for you, well, you've either got too much money or you're having a midlife crisis, but also the Audi does have access to more. Now, if you pop it in the launch control setting, this actually gives you access to 523 brake horsepower and around 10 pound-feet more of torque for about 2.5 seconds. and that gives it a 0 to 62 time in 4.1 seconds. Now, that might not be as impressive as something like the Tesla Model Plaid, but it should definitely not be sniffed at, because the power delivery on the e-tron is just, well, it's eye-watering. I've gotten used to electric power delivery. That's something that I've gotten used to by driving a lot of electric cars. And when you hear 4.1 seconds, you think, oh, well, I've driven the Tesla, it can't be that much different. But there is just something about the e-tron where that power is just really quite thrilling. And I think it also has something to do with the two-part power delivery, because this car actually has 2 gears and 1 gear on the back as well. So when that second gear kicks in, you get a second burst of power, and it almost gives you that 2 stage of your stomach coming into your mouth. It's really quite exciting. And this isn't actually the first time that I've driven the e-tron GT. I was really lucky that my local dealership in Ipswich said that I should come down when they very first got the e-tron in. And by then I had no real knowledge about it. I was one of the first people to drive it. And I didn't expect it to be so engaging. Electric cars now, they are fun, and I am flying the flag for electric, I know that. But a lot of them have lost their soul. Now, that is something that the e-tron has not lost. It has so much soul. It probably has more soul than a lot of petrol cars. This car is just so exciting. The steering, it's very well weighted. It's not quite as heavy as some other performance cars, but it's so sharp. It has that Audi characteristic where you point it where you want it to go, and it's just so sharp and nimble. Plus, this car is nearly 2.5 tons, but you wouldn't know it. It's so sharp, and especially when you go to park it, you forget how big it is because you've been darting it around the back roads. It's just so much fun to drive. This car is heavy. It comes in weighing at 2,350 kilograms, a heavy boy, but it copes with the weight really well on the road. Now, most of that is down to the fact that this is the Vorsprung edition and it gets air suspension, so honestly, as you go over speed bumps, it just glides over them, you barely feel them. And it's also a really settled and quiet drive as well. This glass, it's so thick, and that means that it keeps a lot of the road noise out. There is still a slight bit of road noise, but that's due to the fact that it's on some massive tyres, so you hear a little bit of tyre noise. But other than that, it's very settled and very serene. Range is also somewhat acceptable. You get 298 miles of range, but in real life terms, you're probably looking at about 260. But in real life terms, for a performance car, that's pretty impressive. And even if you boot this car quite often, it seems to actually hold on to its predicted range well. In other electric cars, I've really seen those miles drop as soon as I drive it rather spiritedly. But actually, the Audi seems to keep to its predicted range even when I am driving it spiritedly, which is really nice to see. This car just has a personality that it's so hard not to fall in love with. As I mentioned, it was first teased in the Avengers film driven by Tony Stark, and this feels like a car which is deserved of a superhero. It's got all the excitement of an electric car of the future. It has that soundtrack, that instant power, but it also feels quite reminiscent of cars that we're used to. That driver-focused feeling, this steering wheel, this cockpit, it all feels familiar while still having a taste of the future. This is the perfect car for converting petrol heads. The Audi E-tron GT is just one of those cars which every time you park it up and turn around to look at it, you fall in love with it every single time. It offers the full package. That performance, that electric burst of power, the comfort, and just look at this thing. It is so unbelievably beautiful. I love petrol performance cars, don't get me wrong. The old R8, what a vehicle that was. But this offers you that enjoyment all the time. The R8 nowadays just wouldn't be viable to drive all the time because of how expensive fuel prices are. The e-tron, however, because it runs solely on electric and because it will do around 300 miles or just under, it means you can drive this all the time on the motorways, on the B roads. Oh, I love it so much, and I cannot hide that fact. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. If you've enjoyed the video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Of course, if you wanted more information about the Green Point charger, then I'll pop all of the details down in the description box. And if you want to see more videos like this, then make sure you subscribe to the channel. Until next time, guys, see you later.